In a quiet little town surrounded by green hills and thick forests, life moved at a gentle pace. The streets were lined with small houses, each with neatly trimmed lawns and flower beds bursting with color. For 12-year-old Marcus Johnson, this was home, a place where he lived with his hard-working mother and his loyal dog, Max. His mother worked long hours as a nurse at the local hospital, often leaving early in the morning and returning late at night. But even when she wasn't around, Marcus never felt alone because Max was always there. Max was no ordinary dog. He was a scruffy golden retriever mix with fur that seemed to catch the sunlight whenever he ran through the fields. His big brown eyes sparkled with mischief, but they also held a deep sense of loyalty. Marcus had found Max wandering near the edge of the woods 6 years ago, scrawny and scared, looking for food. From the moment Marcus took him home, the two became inseparable. Max followed Marcus everywhere, to the park, to school, and even to the tiny creek behind their house where they loved skipping stones together. Marcus adored spending time outdoors. On sunny afternoons, he would toss a frayed tennis ball across the yard, while Max chased it with boundless energy. Sometimes they would ride bikes down winding trails or explore hidden paths in the forest. These moments brought joy to Marcus's heart, especially since life wasn't always easy for him. Being one of the only black families in the neighborhood meant facing challenges most kids his age didn't have to think about. At school, some children whispered cruel things behind his back, calling him names or making fun of his skin color. Others laughed openly, mocking him during recess or gym class. At first, Marcus tried ignoring them. He told himself that their words didn't matter, that they were just being silly or mean for no reason. But over time, the constant teasing wore on him. It made him feel like he didn't belong, like he was somehow different from everyone else. There were days when he came home feeling defeated, sitting quietly on the porch with tears streaming down his cheeks. On those days, Max would nudge him gently with his wet nose as if to say, "I'm here. You're not alone." Max had an uncanny ability to sense when Marcus was upset. Whether it was after a tough day at school or during moments when loneliness crept in, the dog seemed to know exactly how to comfort him. One particular evening stands out in Marcus's memory. After enduring yet another round of hurtful comments from classmates, Marcus sat on the floor of his room, staring blankly at the wall. Max padded in silently, climbed onto the bed beside him, and rested his head on Marcus's lap. Without saying a word, Marcus hugged the dog tightly, letting the warmth of Max's presence soothe his aching heart. Despite the hardships, Marcus cherished his life. He loved his mom deeply, admired her strength, and appreciated all the sacrifices she made for them. And then there was Max, his best friend, his protector, and the one creature who accepted him completely without judgment. Together, the three of them formed a family bonded by love and resilience. One crisp autumn afternoon, Marcus decided to take Max for a walk along the wooded trail behind their house. The air smelled fresh, tinged with the earthy scent of fallen leaves. Golden sunlight filtered through the trees, creating patterns of light and shadow on the ground. It was the kind of day that made everything seem peaceful, almost magical. As they strolled along the path, Max trotted happily beside him, occasionally stopping to sniff interesting spots or chase butterflies fluttering past. But peace is fragile, and sometimes it shatters unexpectedly. Around a bend in the trail, Marcus suddenly heard laughter, loud, obnoxious laughter that sent a chill down his spine. Emerging from the shadows were 4 older boys, their faces twisted into smirks. Marcus recognized them immediately. They were troublemakers from the neighborhood, known for picking on younger kids and causing chaos wherever they went. Their leader, a tall boy named Jake, stepped forward, his eyes gleaming with malice. "Well, well, look who we've got here," Jake sneered, his voice dripping with mockery. "It's the little guy who thinks he can live in our neighborhood." His friends snickered, forming a loose circle around Marcus and Max. Fear gripped Marcus's chest, but he forced himself to stand tall. "Just leave me alone," he said, trying to sound braver than he felt. But Jake wasn't interested in backing down. Instead, he took a step closer, cracking his knuckles menacingly. As the tension escalated, something remarkable happened. Max, who had been walking calmly beside Marcus, suddenly stopped. His ears perked up and his body stiffened. With a low growl, he stepped in front of Marcus, placing himself squarely between the boy and the bullies. The change in Max's demeanor was startling. Gone was the playful pup who chased balls and wagged his tail endlessly. In his place stood a fierce protector, ready to defend his best friend at any cost. Jake hesitated, clearly caught off guard by Max's reaction. "Get out of the way, mutt," he snapped, kicking dirt toward the dog. But Max didn't budge. If anything, his stance grew firmer. His teeth bared slightly as another warning growl rumbled in his throat. The bullies exchanged uneasy glances, unsure how to proceed. This wasn't part of their plan. Dogs weren't supposed to fight back. Seeing an opening, Marcus tugged gently on Max's leash and began backing away slowly. "Come on, Max," he whispered, his voice trembling. "Let's go." Max obeyed reluctantly, keeping his eyes locked on the bullies until they disappeared from view. Once they were safely out of sight, Marcus collapsed onto the ground, hugging Max tightly. Tears streamed down his face, not just from fear, but from overwhelming gratitude. Without Max, he didn't know what might have happened. That night, as Marcus lay in bed replaying the events in his mind, he realized something profound. Max wasn't just a pet, he was a hero, a true friend who stood by him when no one else did. And in that realization, Marcus found a renewed sense of hope. Life might throw challenges his way, but with Max by his side, he knew he could face anything. The next morning, Marcus woke up feeling a mix of emotions. His heart was still heavy from the encounter with the bullies, but at the same time, he couldn't stop thinking about Max's bravery. The way his dog had stepped in front of him, growling, and standing tall gave Marcus a sense of safety he hadn't felt in a long time. As he got ready for school, Max followed him around the house, wagging his tail and nudging Marcus's hand whenever he sensed hesitation or sadness. It was as if Max knew exactly what Marcus needed, to feel protected and loved. When Marcus arrived, at school he tried to act normal. He greeted his classmates with a small smile and took his seat in class, pretending that nothing unusual had happened. But inside, he was on edge. Every glance from the older kids made him flinch. He kept replaying the scene in the woods over and over in his mind, wondering if Jake and his friends would come after him again. What if they decided to retaliate? What if they hurt Max next time? During lunch break, Marcus sat alone under a tree near the playground, picking at his sandwich without much appetite. Max wasn't allowed on school grounds, so Marcus felt vulnerable without him. He scanned the area nervously, half expecting Jake and his gang to appear out of nowhere. Instead, he noticed something unexpected. A girl named Emily sitting nearby, sketching in a notebook. Emily was quiet and shy, someone Marcus rarely spoke to, but today she looked up and caught his eye. "Hey," she said softly, her voice barely audible over the chatter of other students. Marcus hesitated before responding. "Hi," he replied, cautiously. For a moment, neither of them said anything. Then Emily closed her notebook and scooted closer. "I heard about what happened yesterday," she said, her tone sympathetic. Marcus tensed. News traveled fast in their small town, especially when it involved troublemakers like Jake. "It's okay," Marcus mumbled, staring at the ground. "I don't want to talk about it." Emily didn't press him further. Instead, she reached into her backpack and pulled out a drawing. It was a picture of a boy and a dog walking through the woods, surrounded by autumn leaves. The boy looked scared, but the dog stood tall, its body blocking whatever danger lay ahead. Marcus stared at the drawing, surprised by how accurately it captured the moment from the day before. "You're really brave," Emily said quietly. "And your dog. He's amazing." Her words caught Marcus off guard. No one had ever called him brave before, not even himself. He glanced at Emily, unsure of what to say. "Thanks," he finally managed, his voice barely above a whisper. For the first time since the incident, Marcus felt a flicker of pride. Not just for himself, but for Max too. Maybe he wasn't as powerless as he thought. Later that evening, Marcus told his mom everything. She listened intently, her expression growing darker with each word. When he finished, she wrapped him in a tight hug, holding him close as though trying to shield him from the world. "I'm so sorry you had to go through that," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "But I'm proud of you for being strong, and I'm grateful for Max. He's a good boy." Marcus nodded, feeling tears well up in his eyes again. There was something comforting about hearing his mom acknowledge what he'd been through. It made the weight on his chest feel slightly lighter. After dinner, Marcus's mom sat down at the kitchen table and wrote a letter to the school principal. In it, she described the bullying incident in detail, emphasizing how dangerous it had been for Marcus and how unacceptable such behavior was. She also included a note about Max's role in protecting Marcus, highlighting the bond between the boy and his dog. By the time she finished writing, it was late, but she didn't hesitate to send the email right away. This was too important to wait. Over the next few days, the story spread throughout the community. Parents began talking about the bullying problem at school, some expressing outrage while others shrugged it off as typical kid behavior. Teachers held meetings to discuss ways to address racism and create a safer environment for all students. Even the local newspaper ran a short article about the incident, sparking debates among residents. Some people argued that stricter rules were needed, while others believed the issue could be resolved through education and empathy. For Marcus, life became a whirlwind of attention. Classmates who had ignored him before now approached him with questions or kind words. A few even apologized for not standing up for him earlier. While Marcus appreciated their efforts, he found it hard to trust them completely. After years of being teased and excluded, he couldn't shake the feeling that this sudden kindness might fade as quickly as it had appeared. Amidst the chaos, Max remained a constant source of comfort. Whenever Marcus felt overwhelmed, the dog would nuzzle him gently or lie down at his feet, offering silent support. One afternoon, as they walked together along the same wooded trail where the bullying had occurred, Marcus paused and knelt beside Max. "You saved me," he whispered, running his fingers through the dog's soft fur. "If it weren't for you, I don't know what would have happened." Max tilted his head, his brown eyes filled with understanding. In that moment, Marcus realized how lucky he was to have such a loyal companion. As the weeks passed, Marcus began noticing subtle changes in the way people treated him. Kids who used to whisper insults behind his back now greeted him politely. Teachers went out of their way to include him in group activities, ensuring he felt valued and respected. Even Jake and his gang seemed to keep their distance, avoiding eye contact whenever they crossed paths. At first, Marcus wondered if this newfound peace was temporary, but as time went on, he started to believe it might actually last. One Saturday morning, Marcus woke up to find an invitation slipped under their front door. It was from Mrs. Thompson, a neighbor who often hosted community events. The note read, "Join us for a special gathering this afternoon to celebrate unity and friendship in our neighborhood." Intrigued, Marcus showed it to his mom, who smiled warmly. "This sounds nice," she said. "Why don't we go?" That afternoon, Marcus and his mom joined dozens of other families at the park. Tables were set up with snacks and drinks, while children played games and laughed together. To Marcus's surprise, Emily was there too, waving enthusiastically when she saw him. She introduced him to her parents, who thanked him for inspiring so many positive conversations in the community. "Your courage has made a difference," Mr. Thompson said, shaking Marcus's hand. Marcus blushed, unsure of how to respond. Courage wasn't a word he associated with himself, but hearing it from others made him feel stronger somehow. While everyone mingled, Marcus noticed Jake sitting alone on a bench, looking awkward and out of place. For a moment, Marcus considered ignoring him, but then curiosity got the better of him. Walking over cautiously, he stopped a few feet away. "Hi," he said tentatively. Jake looked up, startled. "Oh. Hey," he muttered, fidgeting with his hands. There was an uncomfortable silence, broken only by the distant sound of laughter. "I just wanted to say, Jake began, his voice shaky. "I'm sorry about everything. It was wrong of me to treat you like that." Marcus stared at him, unsure whether to believe him. Was this another trick? Or was Jake genuinely remorseful? After a long pause, Marcus nodded slowly. "Okay," he said simply. He didn't offer forgiveness outright. It wasn't that easy. But he appreciated the effort. As he turned to walk away, Max trotted up beside him, giving Jake one last wary glance before following Marcus back to the festivities. By the end of the day, Marcus felt a glimmer of hope. Change wasn't going to happen overnight, but it was happening. People were starting to see him differently, not as someone to tease or exclude, but as a member of their community. And through it all, Max remained by his side, a steadfast reminder of loyalty and love. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the park in hues of orange and pink, Marcus leaned against his mom, watching the world around him. For the first time in a long while, he felt like he belonged. The weeks that followed the community gathering brought a mix of emotions for Marcus. Life in the small town had shifted, but not entirely. While many people seemed genuinely committed to creating a kinder and more inclusive environment, there were still pockets of resistance. Some parents grumbled about making too big a deal out of bullying, insisting that kids would always be kids. Others argued that focusing on race only divided people further. These conflicting opinions weighed heavily on Marcus's mind, leaving him uncertain about whether real change was possible. At school, things improved, at least on the surface. Teachers introduced new programs aimed at fostering empathy and understanding among students. During one assembly, a guest speaker talked about standing up against racism and treating others with respect. The message resonated with some kids, who began making an effort to include Marcus in conversations and activities. A few even invited him to join their group during recess, something that had never happened before. But despite these gestures, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that some of it might just be temporary, a way to look good rather than truly change. Max continued to play a vital role in Marcus's life, offering unwavering support through every high and low. The dog's presence gave Marcus confidence, reminding him that he wasn't alone. On days when old insecurities crept back, Max would sit close by, nuzzling his hand or resting his head on Marcus's lap. It was as if Max could sense when Marcus needed reassurance most. Together they formed a partnership that felt unbreakable, a bond built on trust, love, and mutual protection. One crisp morning, as Marcus walked Max along the wooded trail behind their house, he noticed Jake again. This time, however, Jake wasn't surrounded by his usual gang of troublemakers. He stood alone near the edge of the path, looking awkward and unsure of himself. When he saw Marcus approaching, he hesitated, then took a step forward. "Hey," Jake called out, his voice hesitant. Marcus froze, gripping Max's leash tightly. His first instinct was to turn around and leave, but something stopped him. Maybe it was curiosity, or maybe it was the memory of Jake's apology. "At the park." "Hi," Marcus replied cautiously, keeping a safe distance. Jake shuffled his feet nervously, avoiding eye contact. I wanted to say sorry again," he stammered. "For everything. I know it doesn't fix what I did, but I'm trying to do better." Marcus studied him carefully, searching for any sign of insincerity, but all he saw was vulnerability, a boy struggling to make amends. After a long pause, Marcus nodded slowly. "Okay," he said simply. He didn't offer forgiveness outright, it wasn't that easy, but he appreciated the effort. As they parted, Marcus felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps Jake meant what he said. Perhaps people really could change if given the chance. Back home, Marcus found solace in routine. Each day after school, he and Max would spend hours exploring the woods, playing fetch, or simply lounging in the backyard. These moments provided a sense of normalcy, a reminder that not everything in life was complicated. Sometimes Marcus would talk to Max as though the dog could understand every word. "Do you think people can really change, Max?" he asked one afternoon, tossing a stick into the air. Max barked enthusiastically, chasing after it with boundless energy. Marcus laughed, shaking his head. "You're no help." Despite the progress in his personal life, Marcus couldn't ignore the larger challenges facing the community. Conversations about racism and bullying continued to spark heated debates. At a town hall meeting, parents and teachers gathered to discuss ways to address these issues systematically. Some suggested stricter punishments for bullies, while others advocated for education and open dialogue. Marcus attended the meeting with his mom, sitting quietly in the corner as adults shared their thoughts. One woman stood up and addressed the crowd, her voice firm yet compassionate. "We need to teach our children empathy," she said. "They need to learn how to see the world from someone else's perspective, to understand that differences are not weaknesses but strengths." Her words struck a chord with Marcus. For so long he had felt like his differences made him a target. But hearing this woman speak reminded him that being different was something to embrace, not hide. Inspired by the meeting, Marcus decided to take matters into his own hands. With his mom's encouragement, he started a project at school called Kindness Matters. The idea was simple. Students would write notes of encouragement to one another, highlighting acts of kindness they witnessed throughout the week. At first, participation was slow, but soon the initiative gained momentum. Notes began appearing on classroom bulletin boards, filled with heartfelt messages like, "Thank you for helping me carry my books," or, "I noticed you cheering me on during soccer practice. That meant a lot." Marcus also included Max in his efforts, sharing stories about his loyal dog during class presentations. He talked about how Max had protected him during the bullying incident, and how their friendship had taught him the importance of loyalty and courage. His classmates listened intently, captivated by the tale of a boy and his heroic dog. By the end of the presentation, several kids approached Marcus to thank him for sharing his story. "Your dog is awesome," one boy said, grinning. "And so are you." As the weeks turned into months, Marcus began noticing deeper changes in the community. People started organizing events to celebrate diversity, such as cultural festivals, and storytelling nights where residents shared their unique backgrounds. Even Jake became involved, joining a peer mentoring program designed to help victims of bullying feel safer and more accepted. Though Marcus remained cautious, he couldn't deny that Jake's actions showed genuine remorse. One evening, as Marcus and Max sat on the porch watching the sunset, Marcus felt a profound sense of gratitude. Life hadn't been easy, but it had taught him valuable lessons about resilience, forgiveness, and the power of connection. He glanced down at Max, who lay sprawled at his feet, snoring softly. "You saved me, buddy," Marcus whispered, scratching the dog behind the ears. "But you also showed me what it means to be brave." Max opened one eye lazily, thumping his tail against the wooden planks of the porch. In that moment, Marcus realized that bravery wasn't about facing danger alone. It was about having someone by your side who believed in you. And for Marcus, that someone was Max. The following spring, the town held its annual fair, a lively event filled with games, music, and food stalls. Marcus and his mom attended, bringing Max along since pets were allowed this year. As they strolled through the bustling crowd, Marcus spotted Emily and her family. She waved excitedly, pulling him toward a booth decorated with colorful drawings. "Look," she exclaimed, pointing to a mural painted on the wall. It depicted a boy and a dog walking through the woods surrounded by autumn leaves, the same image she had sketched months earlier. "This is amazing," Marcus said, staring at the artwork in awe. Emily smiled proudly. "I entered it in a contest, and they chose it to represent kindness in our community. I thought of you and Max when I made it." Marcus felt a lump rise in his throat. He had never imagined that his story would inspire others, let alone become a symbol of hope for the entire town. Later that evening, as fireworks lit up the sky, Marcus stood beside his mom, holding Max's leash tightly. The bursts of color reflected off the lake nearby, casting shimmering patterns across the water. For the first time in a long while, Marcus felt truly at peace. He knew that challenges would always exist, But he also knew that he had the strength to face them, with Max by his side, and a community slowly learning to embrace its differences. As the final firework exploded overhead, Marcus leaned down to hug Max. "We did it, buddy," he murmured. "Together." As summer approached, the small town buzzed with anticipation for the annual community fair. It was an event everyone looked forward to, a celebration of local culture, creativity, and togetherness. For Marcus, it marked a turning point in his life. Over the past few months, he had grown more confident, thanks in large part to Max's unwavering loyalty and the support of those who believed in him. The bullying incidents had faded into memory, replaced by newfound friendships and a sense of belonging. The morning of the fair arrived bright and clear, with the sun casting golden rays over the fields where booths were set up. Stalls lined the streets, offering homemade crafts, baked goods, and games for children. Music played softly in the background, blending with laughter and chatter. Marcus woke up early, excited but also a little nervous. Today was special, not just because of the festivities, but because Emily had invited him to help unveil her mural at the art booth. She had worked tirelessly on it, inspired by Marcus's story of courage and resilience. Before heading out, Marcus spent a few minutes brushing Max's fur until it gleamed in the sunlight. "You ready, buddy?" he asked, clipping the leash onto Max's collar. Max barked happily, tail wagging furiously as if to say, "Of course I am." Together they walked to the fairgrounds, passing familiar faces along the way. People greeted, Marcus warmly calling out his name or stopping to pet Max. It felt surreal. Just months ago, many of these same people had either ignored him or whispered cruel things behind his back. Now they smiled genuinely, treating him like any other member of the community. When they reached the art booth, Emily was waiting, her eyes lighting up when she saw them. "There you are," she exclaimed, waving enthusiastically. Behind her stood the mural, now framed and displayed prominently for everyone to see. It depicted Marcus and Max walking through the woods surrounded by vibrant autumn leaves. In the painting, Max stood tall and protective, while Marcus appeared determined yet calm. Below the image, bold letters spelled out the words, "Courage comes in all shapes and sizes." "This is incredible," Marcus said, his voice filled with awe. Emily beamed with pride. "I wanted to show everyone how brave you both are," she explained, "and how kindness can change the world." As more people gathered around to admire the mural, Marcus felt a lump rise in his throat. He hadn't expected his story to inspire so many people, or to remind them of the importance of standing up for one another. Later that afternoon, Marcus and Max participated in one of the fair's most popular events, the Dog Talent Showcase. Participants brought their pets to perform tricks, race through obstacle courses, or simply charm the audience with their personalities. While some dogs leapt gracefully through hoops or balanced treats on their noses, Max wasn't exactly what anyone would call trained. Still, Marcus decided to enter him anyway, knowing that Max's true talent lay in his loyalty and heart. When it was their turn, Marcus led Max to the center of the stage. The crowd hushed, curious to see what this scruffy golden retriever mix would do. Instead of performing fancy tricks, Marcus shared a brief version of their story, the bullying incident in the woods and how Max had stepped in to protect him. As he spoke, Max sat proudly beside him, gazing out at the audience with intelligent brown eyes. When Marcus finished, the crowd erupted into applause, cheering not just for Max's bravery, but for the bond between boy and dog. Afterward, several people came up to congratulate Marcus and thank him for sharing his story. One elderly woman even hugged him, tears streaming down her face. "Your dog reminds me of my childhood pet," she said. "He saved me once too." Moments like these reminded Marcus that his experiences resonated with others, that they weren't alone in facing challenges. As the day wore on, Marcus noticed Jake lingering near the food stalls with a group of friends. At first, Marcus tensed, unsure whether Jake's presence meant trouble. But then something unexpected happened. Jake broke away from his group and approached Marcus cautiously. "Hey," he said, his voice hesitant. Can we talk for a minute? Marcus hesitated before nodding. Max stayed close, his ears perked up as though listening intently. I just wanted to let you know, Jake began, fidgeting with his hands. I've been working hard to make things right. I joined that mentoring program, and I'm learning a lot about empathy and understanding. I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but I hope you'll give me a chance. His words were sincere, spoken without arrogance or defensiveness. Marcus studied him carefully, searching for any hint of insincerity. But all he saw was vulnerability, a boy trying to grow into a better version of himself. After a long pause, Marcus nodded slowly. Thanks for saying that, he replied. It means a lot. Though forgiveness didn't come easily, Marcus appreciated Jake's effort. Maybe people really could change if given the opportunity. By evening, the fairgrounds glowed with strings of colorful lights as families gathered for the final event, a storytelling session under the stars. Local residents took turns sharing tales of courage, friendship, and overcoming adversity. When it was Marcus's turn, he stepped forward, Max sitting obediently at his side. Taking a deep breath, Marcus recounted the events of that fateful day in the woods, the fear he had felt, the bullies' taunts, and Max's heroic intervention. He spoke candidly about the pain of being bullied and the joy of finding acceptance within his community. But the real hero of this story isn't me, Marcus concluded, gesturing toward Max. It's him, my loyal friend who taught me that. Bravery isn't about being fearless, it's about standing up for what's right no matter how scared you are. The crowd erupted into applause once again, whistling and cheering as Max barked happily, soaking in the attention. As the night drew to a close, Marcus reflected on everything that had changed since the bullying incident. Life hadn't become perfect. There were still moments of doubt and insecurity. But it had improved in ways he never imagined. People were kinder, more willing to listen and learn from one another. And through it all, Max remained his steadfast companion, a source of strength and comfort. Walking home together beneath a canopy of stars, Marcus felt a profound sense of gratitude. He glanced down at Max, who trotted happily beside him, tongue lolling out in a wide grin. You're the best friend anyone could ask for, Marcus whispered, scratching the dog behind the ears. Max thumped his tail against the pavement, his expression radiating pure contentment. In that moment, Marcus realized something important. True friendship transcends species. It's built on trust, loyalty, and unconditional love. And thanks to Max, he had learned that standing up for oneself and forgiving others when they falter could spark meaningful change, not just in his own life, but in the lives of those around him too. The weeks following the community fair brought a renewed sense of purpose to Marcus. Life in the small town had shifted in subtle but significant ways. Conversations about kindness and inclusion became more common, not just among adults, but also among children. The mural at the art booth, which celebrated Marcus and Max's story, remained on display long after the fair ended. It served as a daily reminder to everyone who passed by that courage could be found in unexpected places, and that even the smallest acts of bravery could inspire change. For Marcus, the mural held special meaning. Every time he walked past it, with Max he felt a swell of pride, not just for himself but for his loyal dog. People often stopped to admire the painting, pointing out details or asking Marcus questions about the story behind it. Some shared their own experiences of overcoming challenges, while others simply thanked him for reminding them of the importance of standing up for what's right. These interactions deepened Marcus's connection to the community, making him feel less like an outsider and more like a valued member. At school, things continued to improve. The Kindness Matters initiative Marcus had started gained traction, spreading beyond his classroom to other grades. Students eagerly wrote notes of encouragement, filling bulletin boards with heartfelt messages. Teachers reported fewer incidents of bullying, and when conflicts did arise, students were quicker to resolve them peacefully. Even Jake, who had once been part of the problem, was now actively working to make amends. He joined peer mentoring sessions, helping younger kids navigate difficult situations and encouraging them to treat others with respect. Despite these positive changes, Marcus still faced moments of doubt. There were days when old insecurities crept back, whispering reminders of the times he'd felt excluded or ridiculed. On those days, Max was always there to comfort him. Whether it was a gentle nudge with his wet nose or a playful bark to distract him from negative thoughts, Max seemed to know exactly what Marcus needed. Their bond had grown even stronger over the months, becoming a source of stability in Marcus's life. One crisp autumn afternoon, as golden leaves swirled in the breeze, Marcus decided to take Max on a long walk through the woods. It had been a while since they'd ventured far from home, and Marcus missed the quiet serenity of the forest trails. As they strolled along the familiar path, memories of the bullying incident surfaced, but this time, they didn't bring fear. Instead, they reminded Marcus of how far he'd come and how much he owed to Max. They reached a clearing where sunlight filtered through the canopy of trees, casting dappled shadows on the ground. Marcus sat down on a fallen log, patting the space beside him for Max to join. "You saved me that day," he said softly, scratching the dog behind the ears. "But you also taught me something important." Max tilted his head, his brown eyes filled with curiosity. "You showed me that I'm stronger than I thought, that even when things seem impossible, I can get through them. With your help." Max barked softly, leaning into Marcus's touch. In that moment, Marcus realized that Max wasn't just his protector, he was his teacher. Through his actions, Max had demonstrated the power of loyalty, courage, and unconditional love. These lessons stayed with Marcus, shaping the way he approached challenges and interacted with others. Back home, Marcus's mom noticed a change in her son. He seemed more confident, more willing to speak up when something bothered him. One evening, as they sat together on the porch watching the sunset, she placed a hand on his shoulder. "I'm proud of you," she said, her voice warm and steady. "You've handled everything so well." Marcus smiled, feeling a lump rise in his throat. "It's not just me, Mom," he replied. "Max helped too. Without him, I don't know if I'd be okay." His mom nodded, glancing affectionately at the dog curled up at their feet. "That dog is a gift," she said. "He's brought so much joy into our lives." They sat in silence for a while, listening to the sounds of the neighborhood, children laughing, birds chirping, and the distant hum of cars passing by. For the first time in a long while, Marcus felt truly at peace. As winter approached, the town prepared for its annual holiday celebration. This year, organizers decided to focus on themes of unity and gratitude, inspired by the progress they'd made as a community. Marcus was invited to light the ceremonial tree during the event, an honor typically reserved for someone who had made a significant impact. When he heard the news, he was both excited and overwhelmed. "Are you sure they want me to do it?" he asked his mom nervously. She laughed, squeezing his hand. "Of course they do. You've inspired so many people." On the night of the celebration, the town square was alive with twinkling lights, festive music, and the aroma of hot cocoa and roasted chestnuts. Families gathered around the towering evergreen tree, anticipation buzzing in the air. When it was Marcus's turn to speak, he stepped forward, Max by his side. Clutching the microphone tightly, he addressed the crowd. "Thank you all for being here tonight," he began, his voice trembling slightly. "A lot has changed in our town over the past year. We've learned to stand up for each other, to celebrate our differences, and to support one another when times are tough. None of this would have happened without the kindness and courage of so many people, including my best friend Max." He gestured toward the dog, who wagged his tail enthusiastically, drawing chuckles from the audience. "But the real heroes are all of you," Marcus continued. "Every time you choose kindness over cruelty, understanding over judgment, you make our community stronger. So tonight, let's remember to keep supporting one another, to keep building a place where everyone feels welcome." His words were met with thunderous applause, the sound echoing through the chilly night air. Afterward, Marcus lit the tree, illuminating the square in a cascade of sparkling lights. As fireworks exploded overhead, painting the sky with bursts of color, Marcus stood beside his mom, holding Max's leash tightly. He glanced down at the dog, who looked up at him with unwavering devotion. "We did it, buddy," he whispered. together. In the weeks that followed, Marcus reflected on everything he had experienced. From the darkest moments of bullying to the triumphs of forgiveness and acceptance, his journey had been anything but easy. Yet through it all, Max had been his constant companion, a source of strength, comfort, and inspiration. Together, they had shown the world that true friendship transcends boundaries, whether those boundaries are based on species, race, or circumstance. As snow began to blanket the town, Marcus and Max spent countless hours playing in the backyard, building snowmen and chasing icicles glistening in the sunlight. Each moment was a reminder of the simple joys in life, the kind of joys that came from being surrounded by love and loyalty. Marcus knew that challenges would always exist, but he also knew that he had the tools to face them. With Max by his side and a community slowly learning to embrace its differences, he felt ready for whatever lay ahead. And as he watched Max bound through the snow, tail wagging furiously, Marcus couldn't help but smile. Life might not always be perfect, but with a loyal friend like Max, it was pretty close. As winter settled over the small town, a sense of calm and unity filled the air. Snow blanketed the streets and rooftops, turning the familiar landscape into a sparkling wonderland. For Marcus, this season marked not just a change in weather, but also a profound transformation within himself and his community. The lessons he had learned throughout the year, about courage, forgiveness, and the power of kindness, had taken root, shaping the way people interacted with one another. The holidays brought warmth to homes across the neighborhood. Houses were adorned with colorful lights, wreaths, and cheerful decorations. Families gathered around fireplaces, sharing meals and stories. Marcus's home was no exception. His mom baked her famous gingerbread cookies, filling the house with their sweet aroma. Max, ever the curious companion, sniffed eagerly at the kitchen counter, hoping for a taste. "Not yet, buddy," Marcus teased, tossing him a treat instead. The dog wagged his tail happily, content with the attention. One evening, as they sat together by the window watching snowflakes drift lazily from the sky, Marcus reflected on how much his life had changed. Just a year ago, he had felt like an outsider, constantly battling feelings of loneliness and fear. Now he was surrounded by love, not just from his mom and Max, but from neighbors, classmates, and even former bullies who had begun to see him differently. It wasn't perfection. There were still moments of tension and uncertainty. But progress, Marcus realized, didn't happen overnight. It came step by step, moment by moment. The school year resumed after the winter break, bringing new opportunities for growth. Marcus threw himself into his studies and extracurricular activities, determined to make the most of every day. He joined the art club, inspired by Emily's mural, and discovered a talent for painting. Under her guidance, he created a series of pieces depicting scenes from his life with Max, their walks in the woods, their adventures in the park, and the bond that connected them so deeply. When his artwork was displayed during a school exhibition, it drew praise from teachers and students alike. "Your paintings tell such powerful stories," one teacher remarked. "They remind us of the beauty and connection." Meanwhile, Max continued to play a vital role in Marcus's daily life. Whether accompanying him to school events or simply lounging at his feet while he studied, the dog remained a steadfast presence. On weekends, they ventured farther than usual, exploring trails they hadn't visited before. Each outing strengthened their bond, reinforcing the idea that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they could face them together. One Saturday morning, as they strolled along a frozen creek bed, Marcus spotted Jake walking nearby. This time, however, Jake wasn't alone. He was with a younger boy, perhaps 8 or 9 years old. They appeared to be having a serious conversation, and Jake's expression suggested he was offering advice. When he noticed Marcus approaching, he waved hesitantly. "Hey," he called out, his voice steady. "Mind if we join you?" Marcus hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Sure," he said, gesturing for them to follow. As they walked side by side, Jake introduced the younger boy as his little brother, Timmy. "He's been getting picked on at school," Jake explained. "I told him about everything you went through and how important it is to stand up for yourself without being mean back." Marcus listened intently, surprised by Jake's maturity. Gone was the arrogant bully who had taunted him in the woods. In his place stood someone trying to do better, for himself and others. By the time they reached the edge of the forest, Marcus felt a renewed sense of hope. Change was possible, even for those who seemed beyond redemption. And sometimes, all it took was one person willing to extend a hand or paw to set things in motion. Spring arrived gradually, melting away the snow and ushering in fresh blooms. The town buzzed with excitement as plans for the annual spring festival began to take shape. Organizers decided to dedicate the event to celebrating diversity and inclusion, themes that had become central to the community's identity. Marcus was asked to give a speech during the opening ceremony, an honor he accepted with both pride and humility. On the day of the festival, the town square overflowed with energy. Booths lined the streets showcasing handmade crafts, local produce, and traditional dishes from various cultures. Children darted between stalls, laughing and playing games, while adults mingled, exchanging stories and ideas. At the center of it all stood a large stage decorated with flowers and ribbons. As Marcus stepped onto the platform, accompanied by Max, the crowd fell silent, eager to hear what he had to say. "Thank you all for coming today," Marcus began, his voice clear despite the nerves fluttering in his chest. "This festival represents something special, a reminder that our differences make us stronger, not weaker. Over the past year, I've seen firsthand how acts of kindness can transform lives. I've learned that standing up for ourselves doesn't mean standing alone. And I've discovered that loyalty and friendship can come in many forms, even from a scruffy dog like Max." The audience erupted into applause, cheering loudly as Max barked in agreement. Marcus smiled, feeling a wave of gratitude wash over him. Though he had faced hardships, he had emerged stronger, with a loyal companion, a supportive community, and a newfound belief in the power of resilience. In the months that followed, Marcus continued to grow, both personally and academically. He excelled in school, earning recognition for his artistic talents and leadership skills. Teachers praised his ability to inspire others, while classmates sought his advice on navigating conflicts peacefully. Even Jake became a regular presence in his life, volunteering alongside him at community events and mentoring younger kids. Through it all, Max remained Marcus's constant companion. Whether trotting beside him during morning runs or curling up at his feet during quiet evenings at home, the dog embodied unwavering loyalty and unconditional love. Together, they proved that true friendship transcended boundaries, whether based on species, race, or circumstance. As summer approached once again, Marcus found himself reflecting on the journey he had undertaken. From the pain of bullying to the triumphs of acceptance and forgiveness, his story had unfolded in ways he never imagined. Yet through every twist and turn, one truth remained undeniable. Life might throw challenges your way, but with a loyal friend by your side, anything is possible. On a warm June evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Marcus sat on the porch with Max, watching the stars appear one by one. "You're my hero, you know that?" he whispered, scratching the dog behind the ears. Max thumped his tail against the wooden planks, his eyes gleaming with affection. In that moment, Marcus understood that bravery wasn't about facing danger alone. It was about having someone who believed in you no matter what. And for Marcus, that someone would always be Max.